Good morning, everybody. Can I ask you all to please take your seats, please? We're about to get started here at our conference this morning. So, first and foremost, you're all very, very welcome to Cork. And I'd like to, first of all, thank Ciesielski Ireland for organising the weather. Very nice of them to do that. My name is Susan HayesCulleton, and I am going to be your MC throughout the day. Now, for all of you who have travelled here from near and far, I do also want to tell you that in Cork, we love to place people. And what we mean by that is we like to know where people are from and what they're doing here. So my name is Susan, I'm from Dripsey. I went to school in Coachford. I now live in Dublin, but I'm here today to be as Cork as I can ever be. So just for all the Cork people in the room, I have that job done now for a start. So, like I say, my job here today is to be your MC, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what is going to happen and when it's going to happen, etc. Now, in preparation for this event today, I had a good look around at an awful lot of the literature that has been shared around World Ocean Day, and of course there's lots that is sitting today on your table. And of course, just to bring some particularly striking statistics to you, that 97% of the world's life does indeed live in our ocean. And of course, we also know that there is the aim of the 30 by 30 within the MPA. That is going to be the aim, not just in Europe, but further afield. But what I also did was that I also had a look at the sheer business and economic impact of the blue economy as well. And I just wanted to share this with you is, in the last 6 years, we've seen 35 new blue economy companies listed in the stock market. And as a comparison, the market capitalisation of the blue economy in Europe is equal to an amount just about equivalent to the GDP of Belgium. And in addition, the companies that are listed in the stock market have a market cap of over 675 billion, with total revenues of over 840 billion, and employ over 1.4 million people. So if there was ever a consideration or a concern that this is solely an environmental or indeed a societal or indeed simply economic issue, it's not. And I know I am preaching to the converted, but as I've been researching this brief and looking at different perspectives along the way, I sometimes wonder, do we really consider the holistic impact along the way? Now today, of course, isn't just going to be about our speakers, of which we have brilliant people from all over the world, but today is also going to be about your interaction as well. So if I could ask the team to please pull up Mentimeter here behind me. What I'm going to ask you all to do is to take out your phone, and I'm going to ask you to please to hold your phone up to the QR code that's just about to appear here up behind me. Hold your phone up to that. And this will bring you to the area that you can do two things. Number one is answer the questions we have for you. But number two is also to submit the questions that you have for our speakers as well. Okay, so I can see there by the thumbs up that there's plenty, okay, lots and lots of people who are joining. If you can't find the QR code, if you simply go to menti.com and put in the code here 52312768. Now, anytime Menti is going to be on today, you will see the code up here at the top. It's going to be live all day, and any time that somebody is speaking, when they're presenting, we are going to have the Q&A slide there. Okay, so I can see here now that we have lots and lots of people who are joining that. Okay, first, very important question. What is your favourite marine animal? And I didn't expect such controversy to be arising as a result of this. Okay, so what is your favourite marine animal? Okay, we've one very distinctive, okay? Now, what will happen is that as words are appearing more often, the font gets bigger. Right. And we have over 40, we have over 50 answers here. Well, the shark is getting very popular around the place, okay? Orca, dolphin, jellyfish, seal, humpback whale. Well, I have to say, there's no fear you won't be a participative audience anyway, that's for sure. Okay, so basking shark, humpback whale, orca, dolphin, seahorse. There's ones there I never heard of. Great, okay, very good indeed. Now, on that note, let me now ask you our next question. And this is, of course, what the team at Ciesielski Ireland is particularly interested in. What is it that you want to get out of today? because, of course, they have designed a really action-packed day and it's going to cover a wide range of issues. I'm going to walk you through all of those. But what is it that you particularly are looking for today? Okay, well, there's one really big answer here anyway, and that's becoming networking, meeting people in person. Okay. Then there's also a sense of knowledge, new knowledge, etc. A clear call to action, diversity of stakeholder. I can assure you we've that taken care of. Informing, education, community, meet people in person. That never gets old, does it? I hope I'm still saying that in stages in 20 years' time. Investment opportunity, plan forward, learn about policy, information, action, etc. Okay, let me tell you what's going to happen as regards how this is going to work. From the point of view of getting different perspectives, there's a range of keynote speakers, and I'll introduce those one after the other. But there are 3 panel discussions where we really do invite your participation. The first one is looking at a global insight into MPAs and seeing how Ireland is faring. The second one is about delivering transformational change, and the third one is indeed about looking at a diverse range of stakeholders, how they're engaging and how to increase that stakeholder involvement. Okay, now one last question then, and this is if we can just put back up into there, one last question, which is how well is Ireland performing when it comes to marine biodiversity? And there's going to be a range of times I'm going to ask you a question just to get a sense so that we can see how you feel things are faring. Okay. So the scale is from 1 to 5. And let's see. Where we stand there. Okay, and that is with 104 responses. We are at a 2 out of 5. Okay. I'm going to be asking you a range of things, as I say, like this right throughout the day, and what is going to appear after this is going to be the Q&A. I'll move that on just as I get off stage. So from now on, you'll be able to submit any questions you want to the speakers right throughout, but we will be taking your thoughts on this throughout. One other aspect about your interaction is we would really love if you would participate on social media. The hashtag, of course, is FairSeas. You'll be able to see that up over me right throughout the day. So FairSeas is the hashtag. FairSeas Ireland is the tag on Twitter. They're also on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on Facebook, etc. So please do tweet, please do share your stories, etc. I will be keeping an eye on that throughout the day, and I'll be popping in around the way. Now, I do also want to tell you about a secret door that I discovered about 10 minutes ago. It's a very important one. And it's that one. It's the one that brings you straight into the coffee break when we go at the time. It's also the fire exit. I'm not going to make the air hostess joke, but there's also one over there. You know yourselves. And also then the other fire exits are at the back also. Now, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to invite a woman to the stage who is going to formally frame the day for us. And can I ask you all to put your hands together for Karen Ciesielski, please.
Susan. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here to celebrate World Ocean Day with all of you who've gathered here in Cork and online because we all want to see our oceans protected. Throughout the day, we'll hear a range of global and local voices, and we'll have rich discussions about how we can achieve effective marine protection and about the significant benefits that our actions will bring to our habitats and species, and also to our well-being, society, economy, and our efforts to fight climate change. Our marine environment is under severe and growing pressure from global and local threats, particularly fishing, but also agriculture, aquaculture, development, shipping, recreational activity, and pollution, combined with the need to rapidly develop our offshore renewable resources and infrastructure. To give some context to the discussions and set the scene a bit, it's important to take a moment to reflect on how we're doing in Ireland when it comes to marine protection. We currently have designated just 8.1% of marine waters as marine protected areas, which means we have quite a long way to go if we are to reach our target of 30% by 2030. And in many of the protected areas that we've already designated, we still allow harmful human activities with little to no management or enforcement. As a result, marine habitats are continuing to deteriorate with losses of seagrass and oyster reefs, for example. We now have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but we must put in place ambitious marine protected areas legislation. And given the size of our territorial waters, Ireland is uniquely placed in Europe to show ambition and leadership. This must include a target of a minimum 10%, which are completely off limits to fishing and extractive industries and activities. A little later in the day, we'll be hearing from Minister Malcolm Noonan about some of the details of this forthcoming legislation, which we need to be robust in order to give our native species, habitats, and coastal communities the opportunity to thrive for generations to come. It is now or never for our governments around the world and here at home in Ireland to step up. Thank you very much, and I really look forward to discussions and meeting all of you throughout the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Karen, and a very clear and measurable and a passionate target there, certainly from Karen, so thank you very much. I'm now going to invite Lord Mayor of Cork, Councillor Deirdre Forde, to give you a typical quintessential Cork welcome. Can I ask you to put your hands together, please?
That was a bit of a trick, wasn't it? No. Anyway, good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to have such distinguished guests here this morning for the most wonderful event. In City Hall here, we have many events. It's used continuously. And today, I think, is a first for an event of this nature and hugely appreciated because it's very important. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of MEP Grace O'Sullivan and my own colleague, Senator Victor Boyan, who came all the way from Dunleary. When you were talking there and introducing, just briefly, it brought me back. I come from an era where we talked about the ocean and we visited the sea maybe twice a year. And guys kept their socks on inside their sandals and ladies kept their cardigans on. Do you remember that era? And the handkerchief on the top of the head with 4 knots. We were kind of not appreciative of what we had outside our land. And of course, today, we're much more aware. So, Agwina Ushla, ladies and gentlemen, on this World Oceans Day, it's my great honour as Lord Mayor of Cork to welcome you to City Hall for your conference. Today's event, a first of its kind, brings together ocean advocates, and what a lovely word that is. Experts, the fishing community, government, industry, and key stakeholders to map out Ireland's next step for designating and managing a network of marine protected areas. The driving force behind today is the Fair Seas campaign, which is about building a movement of ocean stewardship. I like that word. Key to this is seeking, of course, to expand Ireland's designated set of sea and coastal zones, MPAs, which will be afforded legal safeguarding from activities that could damage critical habitats, wildlife, and natural processes that occur there. Wildlife and this, of course, is a delicate balancing act which needs to not only respect ecosystems, but equally to derive benefits for our coastal communities and the people that live in them and that work and care for the seas on a daily basis. One of the other hats that I wear is as a member of the national delegation to the EU Commission of the Regions, seeking to bring local influence, whatever that is, and the experience of communities and stakeholders to bear on how European policymakers are informed. For many years, I've been struck by something produced by the Marine Institute and the Geological Survey of Ireland, which has been profiled many times on the European stage on a number of occasions at events like today's The Real Map of Ireland. Will be familiar to many in your audience. It's a visual depiction of the extent of Ireland's marine territory, our continental shelf, our territorial waters. Extending beyond 200 nautical miles from the coastline, this is an area of more than 10 times our land mass. In fostering a sense of the ocean as very much underappreciated asset under our national jurisdiction, it really makes you think about what lies out there in the deep Atlantic, beyond what we recognise as this island nation. It should make you think not only in terms of the opportunities, but of course also our responsibilities involved. As it stands, only a tiny fraction of this area has MPA status. If our part of the ocean is to be healthy, if our coastal and maritime communities are to thrive, this needs to change for the better. Now, turning back to Cork City, if you are not from these parts, you will probably not be familiar with one of the great centuries-old traditions associated with the Lord Mayoralty. The annual throwing of the dart. I thought you might like to hear about it. In accordance with ancient decree, the Lord Mayor of the day assumes the role of Admiral of the Port of Cork and is tasked with casting a lengthy dart, a weapon, if you like, which might better be described as a harpoon, into the harbour waters and suitably attired in ceremonial nautical headgear. I had the pleasure for undertaking this ceremony 3 weeks ago on board the Ellie Samuel Beckett, which I think might be outside for teas and coffees or wine later on, but keep that quiet. The wine bit, I mean. It set sail upstream from the naval base on Haulbowline Island. Officially, this act is to symbolise authority over the waters. But in this day and age, perhaps now it needs to be seen more in terms of that word, stewardship. Water is literally the key element in the makeup of Cork. Like many cities, we owe our very foundation to a location by reference to water, being sited at a point where the River Lee could most easily be bridged. We grew over time to extend along the edge of what is, we're very proud to say, the largest natural harbour, not just in Europe, but in the entire Northern Hemisphere, stretching all the way to Roach's Point, where we connect with the Atlantic. This means we are sheltered from the ocean, the open ocean, to the extent that our city motto in Latin is Statio Bene Fide Carine, a safe harbour for ships, something which contributed to our success historically as a significant trading port. But of course, we realise that it's not just vessels that need protection, it's the very waters in which they sail. That is why, just like the Fair Seas campaign, Cork City Council, in tandem with our neighbours in Cork County, are proud to have stepped up to the challenge of the European Commission's Restoring Our Oceans and Waters mission. I was especially proud to sign its charter at the mission's launch conference in Ringaskiddy last November, as Cork became the first Atlantic city to, in maritime parlance, nail our colours to the mast by pledging to play a meaningful leadership role in contributing to the realisation of the mission's objectives. To do so, we are redefining our relationships with our waters in establishing a 10-point programme of action centred on efforts to truly embrace our River Lee and the inner harbour as never before. This encompasses a series of commitments to deliver locally through plans and pilot actions on green and blue infrastructure, on safeguarding biodiversity, and on water quality and pollution, as well as a programme of engagement and awareness through what we all love here in Cork, citizen science. This is an illustration of our intent to significantly engage with our residents of our city, not only to raise awareness of the importance and the fragility of these aquatic assets and to facilitate active participation in how they are managed and used in a sustainable sense. This will be a process of co-creation with the people of Cork. As an aside, it would be remiss of me to overlook this conference coincides with the annual Cork Harbour Festival, so I hope you'll stay around for that, sponsored by Cork City Council, among others, running over 10 days until next Sunday. This is not only a celebration of our maritime culture and heritage and of active recreational use of our water bodies involving any vessel that floats, but an opportunity to learn about and appreciate our local aquatic environment. For example, over the weekend, we've had the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group's research vessel, Celtic Mist, docked on the city quays with a marine biologist on board to provide a floating classroom. How cool is that? Equally, organisations such as the Cork Environmental Forum, Coast Watch, Saboti and Clean Coast are organising field trips and clean-ups along the shoreline to engage members of the public. I must also acknowledge that much of the City Council's work in this regard is being informed by the world-class expertise readily available to us on our doorstep in the form of University Colleges Cork, Environmental Research Institute, notably the Mari Research Centre for Energy, Climate and the Marine. Delivering on these aims will coexist alongside and enrich the realisation of some of the city's key infrastructure development priorities for the coming years, a holistic approach to flood protection measures, waterfront heritage conservation and the relocation of the port facility to Ringaskiddy, which will itself create the regeneration space, allowing us to grow to a more compact city. In collaboration with Cork County Council, the Lead to Sea Greenway, world-class walking, running and cycling routes, amenities running through the city along the harbour to the ocean. It is notable that Cork City Council has recently proudly been awarded or re-awarded, having only been thwarted in 2020 by the pandemic restrictions, the hosting of the high-profile European Maritime Day to take place May 2025. I would love to see you all back for that. I imagine that we will welcome you and many more on that occasion in under 2 years' time, when we find ourselves at the very heart of discussions on maritime affairs and sustainable blue growth. When you are navigating the high seas, having your bearings is important. As a campaign, Fair Seas itself represents something of a landmark. The first time a coalition of environmental NGOs and networks has come together to campaign for marine protected areas in Ireland. Already this has delivered a scientific report revitalising our seas to kickstart the conversation about MPAs. With national legislation due to be finalised this year via the Marine Protected Areas Bill 2023, this really is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, not only to put in place ambitious ocean management, protection and restoration with Ireland in mind, but for Ireland to show leadership on a European and global stage. So today's proceedings will be a key to further making this case and hopefully shining as a lighthouse beacon to steer us off the rocks towards a sustainable maritime future. It's very much centred on learning from national and international experts, and they're here today, of course, and showing how we can apply best practice here, as always, where expertise is in a particular field from around the world is gathered. There is a distinct Corkonian influence to proceedings. With apologies to the other eminent speakers you will be hearing from today, I have to be a bit parochial for a moment in singling out and welcoming back two exiled rebels who have gone on to great things. Brian McSherry of the European Environmental Agency, now in Copenhagen, And of course, he's from down the road from me in Douglas, and we're very proud of you, Brian. And as you're no doubt aware, as a former student of Cllr on Wellington Road, we have Valerie Hickey of the World Bank in Washington. How cool is that? And I always say that when we visit schools, it's a tradition for the Lord Mayor to visit all the schools. If you do well in life, please do something for your own area where you came from. I think that's a good sentiment. May I wish you the very best of a conference, and I know that you have tremendous speakers here. Cllr, thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Lord Mayor. And I will, later on this evening, to any of you who want to know what an exiled rebel is, I'll give you all of that context a little bit later on. Might take a little bit of explaining. So indeed, that really does set us up very well from that local point of view about how and where Cork is placed along this conversation. And I just think it's particularly noteworthy to hear that Cork indeed does have the largest natural harbour in all of the Northern Hemisphere. I remember I heard that for the first time about 6 months ago, and when I was told that we were second only in the world to Sydney, that really did put indeed a feather in one's cap, that's for sure. So what I'm now going to do is, it now gives me enormous pleasure to bring our first keynote speaker to the stage. Dr. Rashid seems to be a stranger to nobody. Anybody that I have spoken to about over the drinks reception, etc. last night knows him extremely well. So he is a man who needs very little introduction, but I'll do one anyway. He is an interdisciplinary ocean and fisheries economist from the University of British Columbia, and his presentation today is very simply called Not Everything, Not Everywhere, Not All at Once. Will you please put your hands together for Dr. Rashid?
Does this work automatically? It's fine? Yes, it's done here. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. This is such an honor and a pleasure to be able to come and share some things with you and learn a lot from you. So this is wonderful. And let's get going, right? I want to thank all of you for making the time. The Lord Mayor was fantastic and all the introductions. So let's get going. Yeah. As you heard, the title of my talk is simply, what? Not, yeah, you're going to laugh a lot. I'll try to make, it's got to be fun also, entertainment, right? So the title is Not Everything, Not Everywhere, Not All at Once. You know where this came from, right? The movie, the movie that earned, I think the most Oscars this year, about 7 of them. Their title is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And then I'm sitting watching it. It's quite a crazy movie, in a way. I was watching it and I said, my God, this, in terms of biodiversity, the ocean and nature, is completely the opposite, right? We don't have to take everything, we don't have to be everywhere, and we don't have to take everything all at once. So that is where this came from. And let's see how the story rolls by. So here I start with this picture, which is very depressing if you look at it. My colleague, Daniel Pauli, he actually has a book with the title Vanishing Fish. And essentially, that's a summary of what the book says. If you look up here, we're taking too much fish. We're taking too much fish. Not only are we doing that, we're taking the big ones first, then the next big ones, then the next big ones. And the third element here is the habitat. We are also damaging the habitat with all our bottom trawlers and other gears, right? So this is quite something. The fish has no home. We are destroying the food web. And we are just taking too many, if I was in West Africa, we're taking too many mommies and daddies, right? And that actually messes up everything. Then you have the big one, climate change. I don't need to say much about that. Pollution, how about that? Plastic in the ocean. There's at least one report that says that if we don't watch it, very soon there will be more plastic pieces in the ocean than fish. Just think about that. You know, we have to do something, otherwise we all have to learn how to eat plastic, right? So this is serious stuff. And then you have all the other things like oil spills and all sorts of things happening. Lots of stresses on our ocean. That is the concept of vanishing fish, and we got to stop that, all right? Then you come to this slide. You know, I like to make this point a lot. When we talk about conserving biodiversity, maintaining, make sure it's healthy, people think it's because we just care about the fish or the sharks. Or yes, we do, some of us do, but ultimately it's about the people, and this I stress a lot. So these are pictures from our group at UBC and the FAO. Essentially, it's telling us that increasingly we are taking more and more fish from depleted systems, so we are overfishing big time. And the consequences of this is quite telling on people. Up there, this is a guy who says, "Is that all the shrimp I get?" You go anywhere in the world. I was in Malaysia in June, was it? And last year, it was unbelievable. There was a lady selling fish on her table at the harbor, and I wanted to snap it. I couldn't because it was so pathetic. The little fishes, very few of them. And this woman, that's her job. That's where her family gets livelihood. It's really, so this is about people, ultimately. And the lady at the bottom is an example of what we call environmental refugees, and we're seeing more of them. And if you're in Ireland or in Vancouver, actually this week, even if you're in Vancouver or New York, you know what this means, right? If you've been following the news. Have you seen the skyline in New York? My God, it's unbelievable. So this lady is an example of that. And I say that we have to take care of our systems, our ocean, our nature, so that people will not be forced to leave their places where their homes, essentially. So we have a lot of forced migration. And people in Europe know this. I don't have to say much. West Africans, the fish is gone, nothing to do. Young people, they jump onto rickety boats. Half of them, or more or less, sink in there and die and sink with parts of our souls. And a few of them get to Europe and all the social and problems, right? Political problems. So this is a global thing. I think all of us who have the ability and capacity have to do all we can do to make sure that people are able to live where they are all over the world. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Even walls cannot stop people. The fish, when the ocean surface temperature is warm, you know what the fish does? They move. Living things don't just sit down and die. People will not. They will do all they can to survive. They move. And this is not, I was in the US, in LA, I said, this is not about Mexicans or Africans, it's about all peoples. You just have to look at your history. At some point in time, life is hard. And some had to move. So we have to make life livable for all over the world, for our own sake. Now, let's get to the more optimistic part. Infinity Fish. I love the title. Of course, it's my book, right? It's my latest book. I love it. You know, the whole idea is we can get away from all this down, and be a bit more optimistic. And the idea in this book is essentially that, and this is not new, actually. We all know that fish is renewable. If we manage our fisheries wisely, we can continue to take them year in, year out, forever, you know. And anything that gives you benefit, mathematically, even if the benefit is small, year in, year out, if you sum it to infinity, what is the total benefit you get? Infinity benefit. Therefore, infinity fish. And I made this argument in Namibia. In Namibia, you know, there are two resources that are really big, diamonds and fish. And they are always quarreling because the diamond mining, a lot of it happens on the water, so they crash a lot. So I go in there and I tell them, to me, fish is more valuable than diamond. And the room went ballistic. How could that be? Two reasons. The first one I told you already. You know, in popular parlance, they tell you, fish is what? Diamond is forever. Don't believe them. Diamond is not forever. If you dig a ton of diamond, you have diamond deposit, you dig a ton today, you are never going to dig that same ton again. So it's not forever. Fish is forever. And when I said that, there were 3 African ministers, and I told her, I know you are in your head, you're saying, but we will sell the diamond, invest the money, and then it will give us a flow of benefits. I said, but I know. All of you are running deficits. Governments are always broke. So forget that. At least you have the fish. It's like a trust. It will give you benefits throughout, you know. And so that's one. The second reason I gave them is that, so this is about valuation in general, you know, and it's important, right? MPAs, why do we want to do them? So the second reason is that I think fish is valuable for many, whilst diamond is valuable for a few. In Namibia, the BS will do most of the mining, if not all. They hire a few hundred Namibians, and that's essentially it. But fish, so I did something. I said, how many of you have seen raw cut diamond in your life so far? How many in this room? Very few. I just see one hand. How many of you have eaten fish this week? Woohoo! You see that? Fish is very valuable to many of us in that sense, and so that's the opening of this book. I've given it to you now. Essentially, what I'm arguing is that we, the current generation, have an obligation to manage our ecosystems, our nature, our fish, so that we can pass an ocean teeming with life to our children and grandchildren, so they too can have the option to do the same. If we don't give them the option, then it's not going to happen. You can give them the option and they blow it, but that's not my business. I do my own job, right? I do my best and I hand it over. And if you do that, you can achieve infinity fish. So that's how you vanishing. I hope we can move up to infinity where things are more beautiful. How do you do that? I argue that to do that, to get to infinity fish from vanishing fish, which is what we have now, we should abandon the notion that we have to take everything everywhere all at once. And if you look at our economy and the system we have, it's all about this. There's something valuable, let's take it, everything. Anyway, we go to space, carry the pollution to space. One billionaire actually said that, right? We need to take things as fast as we can. No, if we really want to have nature that works not only for us, for future generations, I think we have to abandon this. And now I give you my arguments one after the other. And I'm going to start with not all at once, because I think it's very important. And it's about intergenerational equity. We talk about fair seas, right? So it's intergenerational. This is nature giving us this. We have no right to knock it off for future generations. So it's important not to take everything all at once, all right? And this is a quote from a man many of you will know, Nietzsche. Nietzsche is somebody, when I quote him, my European friends will tell me this is not a guy to quote everything he did, right? But I thought this sentence is really catchy in the sense that it gets the point I'm going to make here. And he says, egoism is the law of perspective as it applies to feelings, according to which what is closest to us appears to be large and weighty, and what is further away from us diminishes, and this is a human thing. And I think I'm not arguing with this, right? Today, now, this minute, this space, this room is the most important space for those of us in it, right? Frankly speaking. This is where it's all happening. This is where we are. Our lives are here. So it makes sense. The same thing as today versus tomorrow. So economists capture this in what we call discounting. Essentially, it's the idea that $1 to you today is more valuable than, €1 to you, right? €1 to you today is more valuable than €1 to you in the future. And I can't argue about that. There's good reason for that. You may not be here, or I may not be here tomorrow, so just give me my money now, right? So there is sense in it, but it has consequences, as I will show. So here, this is a flow of benefit. Assume 1 unit flow of benefit to make things simple. coming to you through time until 100 years. If you discount that at 7% or 8%, when I did this experiment, I think it's 7% I use, that is the flow of the value that an economist will take into her analysis, right? That's the one you see. So the dollar you get today is valued as a dollar because today is today, right? The current value and the present value are the same. As you move through town, the dollar value or the euro value keeps dropping. And if you take this into your policy, which we do, you are going to actually ignore a lot of the interests of future generations. This is part of the reason we haven't been able to deal with climate change. One of the Canadian prime minister, whose name I wouldn't give here, said, oh, we'll start doing something about climate change in 50 years. By then, he's gone, right? So that's the thing, and then the children will hold. So to concretize this, I split this into generations of 20 years each. So you have somebody starting fishing, he or she fishes for 20 years, they retire, get off the stage, another. If you collect the area under that graph, that's what you get for generation 1, generation 2. By generation 5, it's almost nothing. And the question is this fair? Is this fair? And I know most of you say, this is not fair to the 5th generation. But actually, if you really look at this closely, it's fair to the extent that you don't use that to make your policy. If you do that to do your weighting of policy, then it's very unfair. But if you count the fish as the fish of each generation, you don't discount until they appear, then actually it's not bad. So here I'm doing the 5th generation, we are counting the value of the fish to them as their fish, not their grandparents who are gone. The fish I eat today, my grandmom or dad doesn't care about that value, but it's valuable to me. So this is a trick I put in, and I came up with something called intergenerational discounting, a way to make sure we count every generation's benefits equally. So introduce a concept of discounting clock. So each generation has their discounting clock. At the moment, economists, we have one discounting clock, and we are the reference. We line everything to forever towards us. No, I say, count your fish as yours, count your sons as his, your granddaughters as hers, and not yours. And if you do that, there's some little magic you get, right? So published this in papers early in the 2000s, got a lot of attention. Cllr, one of our senior prof, was so excited about this. He joined, and we developed the idea. I don't have time to go into them, but these are the references. And I actually applied this to the ecosystems of Iceland, not Ireland, to the ecosystems of Iceland. This is a restoration exercise. And what this thing tells you is you have a system that is declining, vanishing. You want it to come back, so you take out some of the fishing effort. Here we took large bottom trawlers, 50% of them out for 25 years. The fish bounce back, and then you can harvest that much. If you use a conventional discounting method, you will say that that restoration doesn't make sense, right? Because the future value is discounted badly. That's what the first two bars tell you. But if you use the approach I introduced, yes, because you're counting your granddaughter's fish as her fish, then it's valuable to restore. You get it? So that was some addition to this business. So that is, please, not everything all at once. We've got to think of future generations. Otherwise, we are being unfair to them by emptying the ocean. I gave a talk about this, and somebody told me, why do you care? Maybe future generations will love to eat jellyfish. I said, that's convenient. So you eat all the tuna and the salmon and leave jellyfish for them, right? Yeah, nice try, you know. So that is, now we go to not everything. That's about biodiversity. I'm going to make just 2 quick points here. The first one is about the high seas and the deep seas. And there we have fish that live all their life in the high seas. Not many of them, very special fishes. Some of us call them the orphans of the ocean because they don't have a country defending them. You don't get into the waters of Ireland just like that to fish. No, you got to get permission, right? But in the high seas, okay, we have structures, but mainly by and large, anyone can fish there. And the fish there are very special in the sense that they live very long, they grow very slowly, because there's no light, there's no food. It's not like the continental shelves. And so I think that anything that can live up to 100 years, more than grandpa and grandma, don't touch it, right? Leave them alone, my dear people, right? So that is the first point. And that is, and we have papers that actually where we illustrated this. Some of them are so like people, they have names like people. Have you heard of Alfonsino? That's a fish. Mr. Alfonsino, huh? So don't eat Mr. Alfonsino, for goodness sake, right? We'll have something else we can eat. So that's the first point. The second point here is deep sea mining, which has become very topical. There are some of us who want to go down there and take noodles, not noodles, but noodles, or how the manganese and so on. And so far, there's a lot of debate on this, how to get in. Some people think there's tons of money to make, but actually supporters, and the supporters of this thing say we need them because we want clean energy and so on. I was on a panel at Impact 5 in Vancouver with an engineer, a lady engineer, and she actually rebutted this. There's enough of this metals and minerals to actually fuel our transition. You don't need to go down into the deep, break up. There's a paper that says that the dust they will produce at the bottom, dust in the ocean, can you imagine? It's going to be very devastating, and we don't know enough to go in there. Personally, I think we should stay away from this until we know more, and that can be really hard. So these are two things that, to exemplify, we don't need to be active everywhere. Right. Now, let's get to our main topic of today, which is not everywhere. And here we are talking about biodiversity, economics, climate, and social justice all together in terms of marine protected areas. So I'll try to spend the rest of the time with you. This is our global ocean, right? The light blue are country waters, EEZs. And the dark blue are the high seas, 2/3 of the ocean, 1/2 of the surface of the earth. That's massive, it's a large place. But if you look at it, we take only about 5-8% of the total global catch within the high seas. So it's not a lot that we catch. And most of these are tunas, right, that go in and out, okay? So you keep that in mind. And then the key point here is what you do here in the ocean can have impact on what happens over there. You know, because the fish don't care about our boundaries. The fish don't need visa to go to places, right? French fish, English fish, they go whether with Brexit or not, they don't care, right? So we need to take this into account. We have to manage this with that in mind. And so that's kind of a preamble to why we need marine protected areas. Why do we need that? A lot of research in this area. Actually, I look back before this talk. My first paper on this topic was in 1998, actually. I published a paper where I did a very simple model. My main aim is if you are managing your fisheries to deal with uncertainty, shocks to the system, how much of the area will you actually protect? This is very early in this exercise, right? And I came up with something like 50%. You know, because when you are hit by a calamity and you have a big chunk of your portfolio, ocean portfolio protected, that may be the one to save you, right? So here, that's what I call the insurance value. And I believe that the insurance value of marine protected area alone is enough to justify them. This is the reason why your retirement money is not in one stock, yeah? Tesla stocks can be increasing at the moment, but you don't put all your money in there because you don't know what Elon will do the next day, right? So you have to really spread your thing. Every investment analyst will tell you that's part of the reason. Then there's the recreational value. The value of your shark is higher for a shark you keep alive than you kill, right, for the fin. There's one estimate, $1.4 million in the lifetime of a shark you can get through shark watching But if you take out the fin and sell it to China, you get $40 for the fin, my God. And so that's something we have to realize, and take care of. The only issue here is our fisheries, and it's only a short term. When you close an area in the short term, there is some cost to the fishing sector, and that's where a lot of the resistance I see comes from. But if you are medium or long term, even the fishing sector benefit, and I know Adrian will give some practical examples here, right? How MPAs can actually help you. We've seen it all over in Africa, in parts of Europe, in the Caribbean, and in the Pacific. So that is the carbon value, huge. We were in Brussels on June 6th, and that was what we talked about a lot, about stopping overfishing is also climate action. This is our fish effort, right? We have a special issue we are finishing now about that. And actually, you will be protecting the value to future generations by having that. The pharmaceuticals, all the wonderful things that we may discover that can have huge value. By protecting part of your ocean, you are actually safeguarding this. Because we don't know, we might destroy something really valuable. So protect part of it. And climate resilience, of course. I say, fish are like people, huh? Is that funny to say? Fish are truly like people. And I use COVID to explain. If you have your ocean, island waters, if it is healthy, you keep it very healthy, teeming with life. If a shock comes, they are able to persevere and face the shock. It's like COVID. When it came, if you are in good health state and you are hit by COVID, you are very likely to survive. But if you already have pre-existing conditions, we knew what happened. So fish are like people. Let's take good care of them, and then they can also take good care of us. And if you design your marine protected areas wisely and carefully, you can actually use it to improve equity and equality, say between large scale and small scale. In Africa, I'm telling them to maybe create marine protected areas around the boundary of their waters, because many boats come in and just hang on the high seas and then slip in and steal the fish. So if you have a protected area, that might actually be a way to protect you, because if they come in, they're fishing illegally, right? And before they get to the fish, you have some protection. So one can do some clever things to ensure that you protect the people you want to protect, coastal communities, small-scale fishes, and so on. So there's all that, and you'll get some concrete examples later. Now, what does it really mean? This is why the world came to an agreement after discussions, years, right? From the Aichi targets, now to the Montreal Common Global Biodiversity. So now the world has committed to 2030 by 30, right? Protect 30% of land and waters by 2030. And I was glad to learn that Ireland has committed to this. So that's a good start, all right? So I'll get back to that. And this is based on science. O'Leary, she's one of those who actually did a big review paper together of Callum Roberts, and they looked at all the science that has been done, and what they found out is that most of the science is saying that if we protect at least 30%, then we get the benefits that have been has been talked about in the literature. So this is based on science, actually. At least on the ocean side, yeah. So what does this mean? This is a beautiful map of Ireland. It's wonderful. Just look at it. If you haven't seen it before, I love it. And the thing is, when you look at this, the boundaries here. From today on, my advice, call this country a large ocean state, okay? The ocean, your EEZ is 90% of the whole area of Ireland, the land, and the mayor said is 10% the land, right? So, or the ocean is 10 times. So this is a huge resource, talking about blue economy, the potential future value of this, so we need to protect it. And the protection today, I've been given this map by my colleagues, Aoife and Mike. And so essentially, it gives you an idea of the protected areas, the black areas there are currently protected. And it's about 8.3%. I think somebody mentioned this already. 8.3%. But here, we worry a lot about paper parks, where people draw a line and tell you it's protected area and there's no protection, essentially, right? People want to bottom trawl in protected areas. Can you imagine that? Then what does protection mean? Nothing, right? And I understand that at the moment, the 8.3% are actually very weakly protected. And all the benefits I outlined, you cannot get them if your system, if the protection is not strong. I made a joke at one of our ocean conferences in Malta. I talked about this and I said something. I need to ask for your permission to say it here. Am I allowed to say something crazy? So I liken a protected area that has no real protection as, should I say it? Okay, you give me the permission. So I asked them in the room, think about it. Of what value is a condom with a hole in it? That is the way I characterize marine protected areas. That mean nothing. They're just paper parks. You don't want it. Won't protect you, I tell you. So we need to make it strong and tight, I actually said this in passing, and anywhere I went after the video, we heard what you said. I said, oh my gosh, what did I do here? So please make this strong protection. And I know Fair Seas is asking for 10% strong protection by 2025. That would be great. It's strong. It's earlier than what the EU is calling for. So yes, let's do that. The earlier the better, because 5 years, a lot of damage can be done, right? And you have committed to 30 by 30, so it's just to do it, to implement it, put pressure, push the politicians. We all know, politicians will just do it. The people have to be behind it. NGOs, civil society, scientists, we all part, businesses actually. So that is my play here. I know my time is running very fast. Now let me see, what do I say? Now a little bit about the high seas, and I spend a lot of time on thinking about the high seas. If you have a system and you have leakages, that's how I see the high seas. Some countries do really try hard to manage their fisheries, but because of the leakage of the high seas, their efforts are actually don't yield the same results. So this data I'm just showing, I don't have time to, the key point is that very little of the fish we take out of the high seas directly actually gives us catches or values. Most of it are fish that live all their life in country waters and those that go in and out, like the tunas. It's essentially highly migratory species, and all the money and the catch are there, right? So this is what led me and colleagues to say, the best thing is close the high seas to fishing. Just close it. It's too difficult to manage, Nobody owns it. And if we did that, then we can put effort in managing country waters very well. You have an airtight system. And then the fish actually, so these are papers we did. And here, so if you protect, that line is a protection. What do animals do? They get peace when they go to the high seas, And when they do that, usually they get more, they grow better. What do animals do when it's too tight in a place? They jump into your boat cheaply, right? You don't even have to go fish. They just jump in. It's so nice, right? Less carbon emitted, not costly, and also, as we showed in our paper, is good for smaller countries. There are about 5 countries take 70% of all the fish in the high seas. The Chinas of the world, Spain, Korea, and so on. So if you did this, then countries in Africa where people really need the food, or Southeast Asia, will be able to catch too. Ireland will catch more fish because you don't have as far as I know, you don't have a big high seas fishing fleet, but if they leave them, you have more coming in and you can catch them. This is really, if I own the ocean, you know what I'll do tomorrow? I will just close the high seas to fishing and concentrate on country waters. I don't own the ocean, right? So, but it's getting, so my message to you is not everything, not everywhere, not all at once, if we want to maintain our oceans and natural systems. And if we did that, then we will stop this vanishing thing, because if that's our goal, as a high-level goal, then we can organize ourselves and really work towards eliminating all these harms to the ocean. Then we will make sure that we don't use our public funds to speed up overfishing, which is what the subsidies effort has been. This is beautiful, isn't it? That's when we did our paper, I managed to get about 300 scientists to actually do a letter to science, and we got it published. And it was so powerful, the head of the WTO had to do a ceremony for me to hand off the letter to her. By the way, she's the first woman to lead the WTO, and she managed to get an agreement. Ha-ha. Won't you clap for our ladies? It's amazing, right? So I tell her, yeah, this is cool, right? Yeah. So one of my messages when I go to Africa, I say, until the day we give our girls and women the same opportunities as the boys and men, we will never get to where we want to get to. This is nice to be able to say that with this concrete example from Sister Ngozi. Yeah, she's wonderful. So, and then illegal fishing is a big problem. We will put structures, and there are lots of papers to talk about this. Now, my time is up. I'm just running through. Then you will have the protected areas by insurance. Get your 30 by 30 fast. I think there should be a competition. Which country gets there first? And we get more action. And now I say thank you very much for your attention. This is amazing. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Rashid. And if I could just ask you to join me here for a couple of questions. And if I could ask the team to please place Mentimeter up here on the screen as well, so that we'll be able to see what it is that the audience would like to say. Okay. So, first and foremost, thank you very much for that. As we expected, a very colourful, indeed, colourful point, but our presentation. But a couple of points that really stood out to me is not all at once refers to intergenerational justice. Not everything at once is biodiversity justice, but it was just interesting that not all at the one time. I thought your take on changing net present value, changing the way we look at that to actually infinite fish could deliver many, many more multiples on top of that. Yeah. What I'm going to do, Dr. Rashid, is I'm going to ask you the questions that are appearing now behind us. One of them is, how do you manage to protect, I'll read out. How do you manage to protect protected areas? How is that actually managed? And that is currently being upvoted. You can upvote, by the way, on Mentimeter 5 times at this stage. So I'll repeat that. How do you manage to protect protected areas? How is that actually managed?
Yeah, so there are many quick points I can make. Number one, we see that whenever you work together with the fishing community to create marine protected areas, usually they actually are protected because the community is invested in it. They can actually watch it and actually sometimes report when some of their community members violate. So that's one. Second thing is I see technology as really a good way, especially when I talk about closing the high seas. People ask me, how do you do it? Technology could be very helpful. These days, you can actually sit in the office and watch things, right? If they can do Uber, then we can do it, right? Think about that. I mean, when you order and your taxi is coming and you see everything, how it's coming, we just have to make sure that people can make billions because they chase the billions. This is what they should do, create systems that will help us manage our resources. So the people, technology, and policies all can help us achieve this, protect the ocean.
People, technology, and policies. Yeah. The sweet spot is the Venn diagram in between.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the middle point, yeah.
There are 16 upvotes for this one. What is the advice for managing the short-term loss that fishing communities may face as a result of MPAs?
Wonderful question, because really, I think this is the biggest obstacle we face. And it's not only protected areas. Almost any policy you go, at the UN, at the WTO, for example, I'm lifting off to, I was in a panel like this, and anytime we talked about taking subsidies, somebody from the developing world will say, oh, but what do we do with our poor fishes, right? The short-term pain, if you take it, they can't fish, and how do they feed their people? And this has actually compelled me to start thinking of universal basic income as a way to deal with this. You all know the concept of universal basic income? Imagine that we can get a world where we can do that. Then all these reasons, the short-term pressure, we will lift off out of that, and then we can take the world to a really better place.
Wouldn't that have an awful lot more knock-on effects than the question being asked, though? I mean, universal social income would change an awful lot of other things. And I don't want to assume everybody knows what that means, but so universal basic income means that everybody would get a certain amount of money independent of being in employment status or not.
Exactly.
So we wouldn't connotate it with social welfare. It has a different concern. But wouldn't that have other knock-on effects then, not just related to the question being asked?
You know, people have really talked about the disadvantages of that, right? Like inflation. They talk about, oh, these people, they don't know how to handle money. They're going to waste it. There are lots of reasons why people do this. But if you look at the examples around the world, actually...
Like where?
Like in Brazil,
okay.
When Lula came the first time, he had this. People said they wasted. Actually had a huge impact in the villages. They send their children to school more rather than sending them to work. They started small businesses. In Canada, there was a mayor who actually did it in Eastern Canada. It was working very well. It was so successful, the next conservative government killed it. So you cannot be too successful sometimes too, right? But the examples I've seen is that this is actually doable.
And are there also unanticipated benefits, apart from what you're saying, but specifically in the context of marine protected areas or in the context of World Ocean Day today? Do you see another positive benefit of a universal social income?
I really think that is the way to go. Now many are worried about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. We're going to lose jobs. In fact, for the first time, the US has reported that about what? If I remember the number, over 30,000 jobs were directly identified as having been lost in the US because of ChatGPT, right? So if this escalates as many expect it's going to be, what will you do with all the citizens who will have no work to do? Universal basic income can actually deal with it. We just have to have the guts to tax the people who benefit hugely from this. And that is part of our problem in society. Nobody can tax anything. It's not because I love taxes, but I think they're part of really what we need to make our societies work.
Well, as I can see behind me, there are a range of other questions that are now appearing, and unfortunately, Dr. Rashid, we're out of time today.
Oh, no.
But don't worry, you're going to be here with us for quite some time. The man is not afraid to talk, so you're very welcome to Cork, I can tell you.
Thank
so
you.
On that note, before I ask you all to put your hands together for Dr. Rashid, I do want to mention that we have got 2 coffee stations in the coffee area. If I could ask you all to go out through the back area. Margaret is standing there at the back. She'll be signposting everybody. I will give you 1 minute, I will. And also as well, I do want to let you know we're currently at number 6 that we are trending in at the moment. That was also tweeted out, ironically, by Fair Seas Ireland. So we'd really love if you could continue to interact with us. And we would ask you to be back by 11 a.m. so we can keep punctual. But before, as I say, I ask you to put your hands together for Dr. Rashid. I believe you've one more point to make.
One little point. Yeah, thank you for that. But here's a little thing for you. I'm connecting with the Lord Mayor. She said something that reminded me. Maybe I should share it with you, right? She says, wherever you go, like Valerie here, don't forget your place, your original place. And as you may have heard, Daniel Pauli and myself, we were lucky or fortunate to win the Cllr Prize for environmental achievement. How many of you have heard that? Yeah, so that's, and this comes with some change. It comes with some change. So what Daniel and I have agreed to do, one of the things, is to seed some of this money to create a UBC, an Africa UBC fellowship. So we will connect UBC professors with professors in sub-Saharan Africa. They create joint projects for 1 year to start something, a project or a paper with their students. 11 months they will be in their home university, and 1 month they come to UBC and work together, give lectures, just to bring brains together, and hopefully that will help the mother continent. So I thought I should share this, and I can give you a link, actually. I can give you a link to go read about it. You might be inspired to get us one more fellow to come over. All right? Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Dr. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne, thank you so much.